Y'all did it!
Hey, Los Angeles, KBLA Talk 1580 is turning 5, and we're celebrating in a big way.
Oh my God!
Join us Friday, June 19th, Juneteenth, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Beehive for our 5th anniversary bash and Juneteenth celebration. We're talking surprise celebrity guests, a special presentation, and a major announcement you will not want to miss.
I can't wait to hear it.
Plus, live music, dancing, games, and enough food and drink to keep the party going.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Of course, you're welcome to bring your own picnic basket, blanket, and lawn chair. And the best part, it's completely free. But here's the thing. You've got to sign up in advance. Space is limited, so don't wait. Head to KBLA1580.com right now and lock in your spot. Friday, June 19th, The Beehive, KBLA Talk 1580. 5 years strong, and we're just getting started.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
Yeah, man.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA, Talk 1580, download the app.
Jesse Jackson Jr., welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and there's so much ground that we have to cover in this hour. I'm actually looking forward to it, and I should share with you all that whenever I sit in this chair, the great privilege and the great opportunity of speaking to those who can hear my voice is always a challenge. And so I have these little nervous fits before I begin the show. And I think that's my own version of stage fright. So to calm my nerves, given all that's taking place in the media, I want to begin with a quote from Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin wrote and said at the Constitutional Convention, and I quote, "In these sentiments, sir, I agree to this Constitution, with all its faults, if they are such, because I think a general government necessary for us. And there is no form of government but what may be a blessing to the people if well administered. And believe further that this is likely to be well administered for a course of years, and can only end in despotism, as other forms have done before it, when the people shall become so corrupted as to need despotic government, being incapable of any other." Benjamin Franklin's words in 2026 ring significant for us as the corruption presents itself every single day in this government. The news today includes, but not limited to, that the Trump family, per an agreement with the Internal Revenue Service, the Department of the Treasury, and the Department of Justice, is now forever barred from releasing their taxes or being audited by the Department of the Internal Revenue Service. The DOJ order, according to the Raw story, signed by the acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, states that, and I quote, "The United States releases, waives, acquits, and forever discharges the plaintiffs and is forever barred and precluded from prosecuting or pursuing any and all claims, counterclaims, causes of action, appeals, or requests for any relief against Trump or related parties." Now, if there ever was a get out of jail free card, not with the guy on the Monopoly, the little yellow card or the little orange card where you get out of jail free and can continue to roll the dice and play in this massive monopoly that we have here in the United States, the only person playing the game who has absolutely no accountability to the Internal Revenue Service is now the President of the United States. And that's after having sued the Internal Revenue Service for $10 billion. And as part of that settlement, it creates a $1.8 billion compensation fund, if you will, reparations for white plaintiffs essentially harmed, according to Donald Trump, for their activity on January 6th, an activity that he directed from the White House Mall to the Capitol of the United States that led not only to the deaths of several people, but the injury of police officers, including but not limited to the permanent psychological effects of some of them being brutalized, being beaten, being choked, and literally on the edge of their lives for performing their function, their constitutional function, to protect the electoral count and to secure the capital of the United States. Not a single officer on that day could have ever anticipated or expected that the President of the United States would direct a mob to the capital of the United States. More than 1,500 of those criminal defendants were then subsequently tried, found guilty, sentenced, and as a result of their sentencing, they became American felons. I know something about that, what it means to be an American felon. But I never, as a member of Congress, ever disrupted a House proceeding, ever sought to overturn an election, ever hurt my government. And although one of my charges, shared with my ex-wife, was a tax charge, the idea that the Internal Revenue Service can issue a get out of jail free card to the President of the United States with 34 felonies, having not served a single day in prison, is deeply troubling. That's just the beginning of the despotism. In this hour, the 96-year-old former president of Cuba, Raul Castro, has been indicted And it really begs the question, who's going to be indicted for blowing up those school children in Iran? I am not justifying Iran's behavior or its support of state-sponsored terrorism for decades. That in and of itself is its own problem. And yet no Iranian leadership was indicted. The form of justice that they sought was their immediate extermination, the killing of the Iranian leadership, who could have easily been brought to the United States, just like Maduro, and tried in a court of law so we could hear all of the facts around their particular behavior, which too was deeply troubling. And so we have an unaccountable government. And at the same time, the seat of Jim Clyburn is now being greatly challenged by the South Carolina legislature. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, Dr. Wilmer Leon. We're going to talk about this hypocrisy in this hour on the 405, the 101, the 5, the 10, the 118, and 110. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
There is no denying that we've always been the conscience of this country. KBLA Talk 1580 is progressive talk radio built for our community, by our community, and with hosts who look like you, live near you, and care about what you care about. 50,000 watts of truth right here in Southern California. KBLA Talk 1580. Listen live on your AM radio dial at 1580 or stream us live on our KBLA1580.com website or on our free KBLA 1580 app.
Unapologetically progressive.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, host of The Voice of Reason, weeknights at 7 p.m. here on KBLA Talk 1580, with a personal invitation for you to join me and Insight.me as we present The Healing Box, live at Inglewood's world-famous Miracle Theater, Saturday evening, May 23rd at 7 p.m. Look, I understand your attachment style has been running your life like a rogue algorithm, and nobody has had the courage to press pause. Until now, Dr. Pacoya McCall and yours truly are curating a night where clinicians, spiritualists, and an all-star panel of Black woman healers like Dr. Shalonda Sunshine Crawford, Dr. Jashana Johnson, and spiritualist Precious McGill will join some amazing spoken word artists and the legendary comedian Louis Dix to diagnose, disrupt, and heal your relational wreckage in real time. Listen, bring your trauma. As a matter of fact, bring your baby mama. No, bring your testimony. And if you're still texting your ex at 2 a.m., baby, you're not just invited, you're the target demo. Tickets are moving fast, so grab yours at themiracleinglewood.com before your dating history gets flagged as a pre-existing condition. That's themiracleinglewood.com. We'll see you there Saturday, May 23rd at 7 p.m.
I love days like these at the pool, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. I'm ready to make a splash with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, risankizumab Riza. Skyrizi is a prescription-only injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. At 4 months, most people saw 90% clearer skin when measured from head to toe, and many were even 100% plaque-free. People also saw significant improvement in psoriasis symptoms of pain, redness, itching, and burning.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
Now there's nothing on my skin thanks to Skyrizi, and that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis. Visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZI to learn more.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King of all Raleigh drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download that.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It is Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and we are joined by none other than Dr. Wilmer J. Leon III, PhD, political scientist whose primary areas of expertise are Black politics, public policy, and American government. For 11 years, Dr. Leon was a lecturer in the political science department at Howard University in Washington, D.C. Dr. Leon, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
As always, it's a pleasure. Good afternoon and greetings to your audience.
It's our audience. I'm so glad that you're here, Dr. Leon. Dr. Leon, can we start with the indictment of Raul Castro?
Yes. Why? That's rhetorical. You go in and you illegally arrest President Maduro in Venezuela. Now you are seeking to indict former Cuban President Castro. Who's next? Ricky Ricardo? This is insanity.
96-year-old Raul Castro, for apparently he was accused while he ran the armed forces of the country of Cuba of shooting down, I guess, 2 private planes, with one of which had several American citizens on it. I don't know all of the facts. I guess we'll find out about them as the indictment becomes more publicly made aware to the American people and to the world. But to your question, and why? America shoots down planes all the time. America bombs schools all the time. Who is responsible and who is going to be indicted for that behavior?
And what did the United States Supreme Court just hold in regards to Donald Trump? That acting as president, he is above the law. Well, if Raul Castro was acting as president in Cuba, what's good for the goose should be good for the gander.
Or Maduro acting as president of the country of Venezuela. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I might add that underneath some of these offenses is the idea that they played some role in the selling of narcotics. But we remember, even in California, back in the 90s and the early 2000s, we remember in the 80s with Reagan and Oliver North and their alleged drug involvement and engagement here in the United States, as well as, I guess, Ricky Ross in Los Angeles and the role that they said and role that he confessed to playing on behalf of the United States government.
And thank you to the late Gary Webb, the reporter from the San Jose Mercury News, who uncovered all of that. Look, they kidnapped Father Jean, former president of Haiti, Father Jean-Bertrand Aristide, twice. This is just naked imperialism. This is at its height. And what really shocks me more than the fact that the Trump administration is doing it, where's the outrage in this country? Where's the pushback in this country? There aren't enough people crying foul.
So I have this theory. I have this electoral college theory, which I've been advancing on the question of the Voting Rights Act. And that is, for every Black district that we lose or that gets divided up in the South, including but not limited to the city of Memphis, Tennessee, has now been divided into 3 congressional districts, making it very difficult for a Democrat to win. But they're essentially drawing another congressional district in the state of Tennessee, allowing a conservative, Republican, maybe a MAGA-ite, an equal opportunity of getting to Congress without having to pay any attention to the African-American constituents in that congressional district under the new division and the new lines, that there is a corresponding electoral vote that now is no longer, for example, voting for a Democratic candidate. They are voting for a Republican candidate in order to get to 270. We cannot ignore the impact of the Cuban lobby in the state of Florida
Mhm.
and the electoral college vote that it represents in key presidential elections, not only in Bush v. Gore, where the Supreme Court in that state stopped the count along with the help of the U.S. Supreme Court, but Marco Rubio, who is touted as a presidential candidate, is Secretary of State and has significant influence in global affairs in the United States as a former United States senator and now as Secretary of State. I have to believe that what is taking place in Florida is as much an electoral college calculus as it is just the raw, pure imperialism. Your thoughts on the idea that they want to keep Florida in the Republican column in the next election?
I think you're absolutely right. Somebody would be very hard pressed to present a better case that contradicts your analysis than what you just presented. Here's a key factor, though, that I think people need to pay attention. Well, that people need to pay attention to. And before I say that, let me say this. With all of the redistricting that is taking place, I would like to see the analysis. I would like to see the data of those in the Black community that have not voted. And so what will be the response? Redraw the districts all you want. What will be the response if we decided to overwhelm your redistricting with our turnout? That's the first question. And I don't know the answer. I'd like to see the data. The second part that takes me to this. When you go back to the Obama elections, he won he won same thing. He won Florida both times. And when you look at the demographic data, the Cuban immigrants, the older Cuban immigrants, they voted Republican. Their children voted for Obama. So that, to me, just reinforces the idea of turnout. And if you start to develop messages that actually resonate with your targeted voting bloc, you'll be amazed at the things you can do.
I'm actually surprised because I think if, in fact, Castro, for whatever reason, makes an appearance in a U.S. federal court and or is captured by the Trump administration, which has shown its capacity and willingness to extract leaders from countries or those who've been criminally indicted and bring them to the United States. Manuel Noriega, we've seen it there. We've seen it now with Maduro. Now we are hearing rumblings about it with respect to Raul Castro. The Castro indictment is coming out of Florida, which is where the sealed indictment was. So you've got to imagine that such a case, such a hearing, such a process would dominate the news in Florida. And I got to bring up this racial component, if you don't mind, Dr. Leon, and that is, it's rarely spoken, but African people who, by way of the slave trade, landed in Florida, most Cubans who are people of color look like us.
Afro-Cubans.
They're Afro-Cubans. They are not the Cubans
Euro-Cubans
to Florida, who are insisting upon their return, their right to have their land, anything that they believe was taken from them in the revolution, and essentially to restart the process of their control in Cuba. I have heard even rumblings of the idea that Cuba, under the Trump administration and the Rubio thinking, could become the 51st state in the United States, giving the conservatives 2 additional senators in the United States Senate, even though that is probably contrary to the genuine desires of the people of Cuba. The first thing we've done is obviously strangle them economically by cutting off their oil so that the quality of their lives are profoundly impacted.
And what you just said is the point that I was just going to get to. The United States has cut off their access to electricity. The United States has cut off, because of that, their access to hospital care. The United States is basically starving the island of Cuba. And why? If somebody could just explain to me why, we could have a much more intelligent conversation in terms of the what. But I don't even understand the why. And I always want to remind folks, when you talk about Cuba, you can't forget Haiti. That's why I mentioned former President Jean-Bertrand Aristide. We're doing the same thing in Haiti that we're doing in Cuba. And as you raise the race question, they're Black people that are suffering. Ask yourself why.
For some of you who watch movies, and it's hard to conceive of the idea that Americans have never seen the movie The Godfather, lest should we forget that when Michael Corleone went to Cuba as a gangster out of New York in the olive oil business, he met with Cuban individuals who were part of that organization, and they were trying to shake Michael Corleone down for a couple of $1 million to join something that Michael did not have confidence in, only to find out that he was hearing about a revolution in the streets that would indeed depose the leadership in Cuba because of the way in which that leadership were treating the indigenous Afro-Cubans and the people on the ground in Cuba. Cuba has made an enormous contribution to creating doctors and sending them to Angola, to sub-Saharan Africa, for the purposes of providing medical care for poor Africans. There's a place down in Cuba called the Isle of Youth, where African countries send their young people to be trained in medicine, to be trained in service. That is also part of this discussion. There is Guantanamo Bay that the American government has never relinquished and returned to the Cuban people, and it is a modern metropolis if you've ever been to Gitmo, but it's also responsible for some fairly heinous crimes during the war on terror. And I'm just wondering where this all goes, because Cuba has been influential in South America in terms of training its leadership, in terms of helping them fight imperialism and the dominance of American influence in many of their countries, because what? They weren't in a position to provide healthcare, to provide housing, to provide education for their people. And subsequently, the United States' form of imperialism began a process that undermined some of the great experiments for the recovery of our people in the South. Your thoughts?
You don't have freedom in South Africa without Cuba's assistance in Angola. People need to be able to understand the history and connect the dots. I'm glad you brought up the medical care, because there are a lot of countries in Africa and in other parts of the world that have health care because of doctors that were trained for free in Cuba. And African Americans need to understand, particularly if you speak Spanish, that's a great place to go to medical school.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We are in conversation with Dr. Wilmer Leon, political scientist, whose primary expertise is Black politics as well as international affairs. When we come forward, I do want to have a conversation with Dr. Leon as to whether or not African American athletes should boycott state schools in the South, a movement being led by the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. President Trump is signaling support for former reality TV star Spencer Pratt in the Los Angeles mayor's race.
I'd like to see him do well. He's a character. I don't know him. I assume he probably supports me.
Pratt is a registered Republican running without party affiliation as he tries to unseat Black Democratic Mayor Karen Bass. Trump did not formally endorse him. Former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms is hoping to become the first Black woman elected U.S. governor. Bottoms won Georgia's Democratic primary Tuesday. The Republican nominee will be decided in a June 16th runoff. And the woman accused of opening fire on Rihanna's Los Angeles area home will now undergo a mental competency hearing. Ivana Ortiz is due in mental health court on June 2nd after a judge reconsidered the defense's request. Prosecutors say Ortiz fired 10 rounds at the home in March while Rihanna, her children, her mother, and rapper A$AP Rocky were inside. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell said the league is cooperating with Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier, who issued a subpoena against the NFL as part of his investigation into the league. Uthmeier is investigating the NFL for potential civil rights violations related to the league's Rooney Rule. Uthmeier wants the league to get rid of the Rooney Rule, which the league implemented in 2003 to help promote diversity and hiring practices. If the league does not comply, Uthmeier said he will file a civil rights lawsuit against the league. Uthmeier said the Rooney Rule is blatant race and sex discrimination. Let me break this down for you. Those are code words for individuals and groups who think white people have been passed over for coaching and high-level positions by minorities, specifically African Americans. At the moment, Goodell said there are no plans to get rid of the Rooney Rule. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, aka the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Let's be real. For too long, too many of our students have sat in overcrowded classrooms in underfunded public schools.
But as head of the San Diego School Board, Richard Barrera changed that.
Under Barrera's leadership, student literacy rose from the state average all the way to number 1 among major urban school districts. Barrera led the way for smaller classrooms and for teachers to be paid what they're worth.
Barrera funded more counselors and mental health services, and community schools that teach real-world skills for future jobs.
A community organizer who became an education leader to fight for our kids. The only candidate for State Superintendent of Public Instruction.
Backed by the 310,000 classroom educators of the California Teachers Association. Vote Democrat Richard Barrera for State Superintendent.
Ad paid for by California Teachers Association Independent Expenditure Committee. Not authorized by a candidate or committee controlled by a candidate.
Hey LA County, it's time to vote. Return your ballot early at any official ballot drop box. Visit plan.lavote.gov to make your voting plan today. Brought to you by the Los Angeles County Registrar.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The BLM Center for Black Power is a hub for Black activism in the city of Los Angeles, a standalone nonprofit affiliated with Black Lives Matter LA. The venue is home to live events, meetings, and organizing drives for Black-led community-based organizations. It is also the base of operations for Black Lives Matter LA. Built on what used to be a nuisance property owned by an arms dealer, the BLM Center for Black Power is in the heart of Leimert Park and has opened its doors to everything from youth organizers to toy drives to film screenings and community town hall meetings. To make a donation or make a request, please visit blmla.org. That's blmla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The joint will be jumping. Ebony Repertory Theater, in association with Fig Street Films, brings you one of the most beloved musicals of all time. Tony Award winner, Ain't Misbehavin'. The soulful, swinging celebration of the music of Fats Waller. From the rollicking to the romantic, this show is pure magic, full of the songs that defined an era and the voices that'll make you forget everything else for a night. Foot stomping, heart stirring, unforgettable. Don't miss Ain't Misbehavin' at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center, starring Lettucey, directed by Ren T. Brown. This is the night out you've been waiting for. Tickets are going fast, so don't wait. Grab yours now at ebonyrep.org or call the box office today at 323-964-9766. Ebony Repertory Theater, bringing the culture, keeping the legacy alive.
Ain't Misbehavin' runs May 21st through June 8th at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center. Get your tickets now.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Wealthy Wednesdays with Dr. Wilmer Leon. Dr. Leon is the host, producer of the nationally broadcast radio show Inside the Issues with Wilmer Leon on Sirius XM Satellite Radio, Channel 126. He's the author of Politics, Another Perspective, commentary, and analysis on race, war ethics, and the American political landscape in the age of Obama. He's also the contributing author of Democratic Destiny and the District of Columbia, published by Lexington Books in 2010. Dr. Leon, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks. I greatly appreciate it.
Dr. Leon, how can we support your work before we get to this question of what should Black athletes do in the South? Dr. Leon, how can we support your work?
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, you can go to Amazon and order the book, Politics, Another Perspective. It's a collection of op-eds that I wrote over a period of about 10 to 12 years, published in over 100 Black newspapers. So it's even though it was published a while ago, the introductions of each section, I think, make the book kind of evergreen. And then tune into the show Saturdays from 11 to 2 p.m. Eastern on Sirius XM 126 Urban View.
Thank you, Dr. Leon. Dr. Leon, the NAACP, now supported by Hakeem Jeffries, Jim Clyburn, and a growing number of organizations and individuals, are calling for African-American athletes who are entering the portal, who are leaving high school on their way to college, to boycott the SEC, to boycott schools, state schools, if you will, in the South, not the HBCUs. In fact, they're encouraging these athletes to consider attending schools at the historically Black colleges and university. I do have a question about your thoughts on whether or not this is an effective way of addressing the representation of Black people that's greatly challenged not only in the congressional district remapping, but with a remand from the Supreme Court back to the federal court in the Mississippi case. That remand essentially overturned and requires the federal court to take a hard look in Mississippi at state legislative districts that have been redrawn as well, consistent with Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And the remand essentially encourages the court to follow the Louisiana versus Calais decision. Your thoughts on Black athletes in the South?
Well, I always, when I teach a public policy class, I always ask my students to remember or think about the difference between the theoretical and the practical. There are a lot, and you would know this as a congressman, there are a number of ideas that people present to you that they want to turn into legislation that theoretically make sense. In theory, they sound good. But then when you try to implement them at the practical level, now you got problems. So theoretically, I understand what the NAACP is asking. Theoretically, it makes perfect sense. Practically, how do you implement this? You're asking a student who may very well have a scholarship, academic, sports-related scholarship, to give up their scholarship to go to college. Well, then what are you offering them as an alternative? So I'm not saying this is a bad idea. I'm just asking these questions because I don't know the answer. If my son is a linebacker and was possibly going to be starting for Alabama or starting for LSU or for Oklahoma, what do you want him to do now?
That's a great question. And that's where I'm kind of stuck. While I support the intention, the theory that you and Jim Clyburn and others are supporting, this practical question of a kid comes from poverty. He has gone through elementary school and high school. He has a way out of a shotgun house. And that might be to be a linebacker, to be a lineman, to be a running back. And you get recruited to go to one of these schools. Parents working hard as hell, grateful that their child is the first child with their name to ever go to college in the first place. They're offered through scholarship, but also through compensation from corporations and boosters, which apparently is now legal, $200,000 a year as a college student, help for their mothers and fathers who've been working all of their lives. And then you turn around and tell that kid, because lines are being redrawn at the political level, you should not go to college and play for them, while not providing them with a similar benefit at another college that is more welcoming. I'm struggling with that, Dr. Leon, on the practical side of this.
And here are two more questions. One, Jim Clyburn, where were you when Colin Kaepernick took a knee? Hakeem Jeffries. And again, I don't know the answer, so I'm asking the question. I am not presuming that they were anywhere. I'm just asking the question because I don't remember seeing them front and center calling for a national boycott of the NFL when Kaepernick took a knee. And Jim Clyburn, where are you on genocide in Gaza? Hakeem Jeffries, I know where you are because I know how much AIPAC has paid you to be where you are. Gregory Meeks, I know where you are on Gaza because I know how much AIPAC paid you to be where you are. So look, you can't be morally inconsistent here. And when you say that you stand with Israel in genocide against Palestine, that's an immoral stance. I don't care how much it impacts your pocketbook. That's an immoral stance. So how can you claim morality or righteousness and want to be down with the people when it comes to the Calais case and voting redistricting? Your issue, Jim Clyburn, is your behind is on the line. Your seat is in jeopardy. The Blaze is now threatening to burn down your house. That's where you are with this.
It's tough. I mean, the University of South Carolina.
That ain't tough. That's simple.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I'm saying that when you think about the University of South Carolina and scholarships to the University of South Carolina, where Jim Clyburn was a congressman and is a congressman. When you think about African Americans in these other congressional districts and the state-supported schools that they, as members of Congress, have fought to ensure that their biology programs, that they are funded in the Defense Department and the various appropriations bills. And now suddenly, to your point, when the political lines are shifting and it affects you, you're asking these young children to sacrifice their lives and their futures because of the political lines that are being drawn. And they may not be drawn to our advantage, but we're asking them to shoulder, the students, to shoulder a burden that is far greater than the burden anyone at 17 or 18 years old is being asked to shoulder on their way to college. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. I have not made a judgment one way or the other on where I am on this subject matter, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk about it with Dr. Wilmer Leon. When we come forward on KBLA Talk, more with Dr. Wilmer Leon.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
My name is Cynthia Mitchell. I've been an emergency room nurse in Los Angeles County for 25 years. I've been there through every fire season, every outbreak, every earthquake. Every time Los Angeles needed us, the doctors and nurses of Los Angeles County showed up. And right now, I'm seeing another disaster coming. Trump's cuts to Los Angeles County's healthcare system are a public health crisis in the making. Medi-Cal, public hospitals, disaster preparedness are all at risk, but we can stop it. Measure ER fights back against these cuts. For a half a penny, we keep emergency rooms open, care within reach for working families, and doctors and nurses serving the communities we love. When you vote yes on Measure ER, you're not just voting for healthcare, you're voting for LA. Vote yes on Measure ER by June 2nd.
Ad paid for by Yes on ER, Restore Healthcare for Angelenos, sponsored by St. John's Community Health and Health Justice Action Fund. Ad committee top funder, St. John's Community Health.
Going to a World Cup match in LA this summer? Ditch the parking stress and ride Metro. With direct service from across LA County, it's the easy way to get there for just $1.75 each way.
Hi, I'm Fred Martin, founder of Compton Kids Club. I just want to talk about the authenticity and tell y'all about my homeboy, Tom Steyer. Tom is a rock star. When I met him, Tom gave a grant to schools in San Francisco. All the kids were on probation. We were flying instructors for 2 years to come and help those kids doing performing arts and turning their life around. Some of the kids that he supported, they've graduated from UCLA. Let's fast forward. Tom is in schools in Compton, hanging out with the kids in the piano classes. Brother Tom Steyer hangs out in the studio with us. These are the seeds that he's planted. This has nothing to do with elections. What's coming out of his mouth is not a campaign speech. It's authentic. And when he say he walks away from a business because he want to do his values, he ain't making that up because he's running for governor. This man is real.
Ad paid for by Steyer for Governor 2026.
Let's be real. For too long, too many of our students have sat in overcrowded classrooms in underfunded public schools.
But as head of the San Diego School Board, Richard Barrera changed that.
Under Barrera's leadership, student literacy rose from the state average all the way to #1 among major urban school districts. Barrera led the way for smaller classrooms and for teachers to be paid what they're worth.
Barrera funded more counselors and mental health services, and community schools that teach real-world skills for future jobs.
A community organizer who became an education leader to fight for our kids. The only candidate for State Superintendent of Public Instruction.
Backed by the 310,000 classroom educators of the California Teachers Association. Vote Democrat Richard Barrera for State Superintendent.
Ad paid for by California Teachers Association Independent Expenditure Committee, not authorized by a candidate or committee controlled by a candidate.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from IQ Bar. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at eatiqbar.com/policy/terms of service.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 9 plant protein bars, 8 hydration mixes, and 4 mushroom coffee sticks. And now you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping when you text RADIO to 64,000. Text RADIO to 64,000 to get your 20% off. That's RADIO to 64,000.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
My son loves to fly kites, but my active psoriatic arthritis can sometimes hold me back. Now with Skyrizi to treat my skin and joints, I'm ready to go. Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults, helps with less joint pain, stiffness, swelling, and fatigue. For those who also have plaque psoriasis, 90% clearer skin is possible with just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, there's nothing like clearer skin and better movement, and that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi today and visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZZI to learn more.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Bobby drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580.
It's Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This coming Friday, we will be testing our new technology, the ability to receive call-ins from those of you who are listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Please write down our phone number, 833, it's toll-free, SHOW JJJ. 833-SHOW, SHOW-JJJ. That's 833-746-9595. I see Barbara Jean, Quincy Alexander, Lynette Purple Alexander, Tracy Van Zant Foyles, Nicole Gooden, Deborah Black. I'm inviting everyone to give us an opportunity to test our equipment, to call into a show. We want to have you live on the radio and ask your questions, but we do want to test our equipment as we move forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. In this hour, we've been blessed to have Dr. Wilmer Leon. Dr. Wilmer Leon is the host and producer of a nationally syndicated radio talk show called The Issues with Wilmer Leon on Sirius XM Satellite Radio, Channel 126. His book is available, Politics, Another Perspective, Commentary and Analysis on Race, War Ethics, and Politics, and the American Political Landscape in the Age of Barack Obama. It is available on Amazon.com. Dr. Leon, during the break, I had a reflection. Why not ask the professional athletes, Dallas Cowboys, the Atlanta Falcons, the professional ball clubs, all of whom have African Americans play in the South, the Atlanta Braves. We can go right down the list of professional teams, not college students, not students moving from high school into college, beginning their lives, but people who've already made millions, already have guaranteed contracts, to raise questions. Why not the talking pundits in sports? on ESPN who cover Southern games and cover games where our political representation, Stephen A. Smith, why not ask them to not cover games in the South, where the pinch is a little different than asking students who are vulnerable, trying to get into college, trying to work their way out of poverty, waiting all of their lives for this opportunity. Dr. Leon, in this moment, I'm thinking about that Olympics that one of our presidents decided to boycott. And these athletes had been training their entire lives for the Olympics, only to be told that they would not have the opportunity to compete for gold medals. It just seems a little unfair. Dr. Leon?
No question. You're absolutely right. And that takes me back to the Kaepernick question. And, they didn't support him. And what was he protesting?
Police brutality, the treatment of young black men at the hands of law enforcement.
And imagine what the reaction would have been if one of two things had happened. The Sunday after he took that knee, the black fans didn't go to the games. This is why I say you've got to stop thinking like a fan and start thinking like a consumer. Why are you spending your money? You wouldn't spend your money in a restaurant where they disrespected you, where they might spit in your food. Why are you going to support something where they spit in your face? So again, I love the NAACP and the idea of the collective thought that they're trying to generate. And it's that collective mindset that concerns the dominant culture the most. Oh my God, if black people actually start thinking politically in unison, oh my God, we're going to be in trouble. That's what they're the most fearful of. So I commend the NAACP in heading in that direction, but I just don't know that this particular request or demand is that well thought through.
It's picking up steam, and we'll be covering this story over the course of the next couple of months, maybe even the next couple of years, because the consequences and the ramifications of this are extraordinary, including those athletes who do choose to play at the schools where the opportunities have been presented. How are we going to treat them? Are we going to treat them like they are the problem when they are not the problem? The problem is the institutional players in state legislatures, in governor's mansions, in those states who are responsible for bringing forward expeditiously Jim Crow 2.0. It is not these kids and their fault. I agree. I'd love to have been part of a larger meeting with organizational heads before they made this particular announcement, because as someone who spends a lot of time with students, the consequences, as you know, Dr. Leon, are extremely sensitive. Dr. Leon, we have about 2 minutes before we come forward. Your word of hope.
And I'll just also say that this should be expanded to boycotting the states from a business perspective, from a vacation perspective, from a conference perspective. There should be a list of the states that are now no-go entities. I mean, if you want to do this, we can do this, but let's be sure this is thought through. And to your earlier point, to ask a 17-year-old to make a political sacrifice of this nature, especially when you're not giving them a viable alternative, that to me is a heavy lift.
One of the things we are telling them to do is register and vote. And so we want them in the political process, but we want them to make an extreme sacrifice when it comes to their scholarships in college. Dr. Leon, love you very much, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Other than love you back.
I appreciate you very much. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. It's Wealthy Wednesdays. We've been blessed with Dr. Wilmer J. Leon, political scientist, whose primary areas of expertise are Black politics, public policy, and American government. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. President Trump is signaling support for former reality TV star Spencer Pratt in the Los Angeles mayor's race.
I'd like to see him do well. He's a character. I don't know him. I assume he probably supports me.
Pratt is a registered Republican running without party affiliation as he tries to unseat Black Democratic Mayor Karen Bass. Trump did not formally endorse him. Former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms is hoping to become the first Black woman elected U.S. governor. Bottoms won Georgia's Democratic primary Tuesday. The Republican nominee will be decided in a June 16th runoff. And the woman accused of opening fire on Rihanna's Los Angeles area home will now undergo a mental competency hearing. Ivana Ortiz is due in mental health court on June 2nd after a judge reconsidered the defense's request. Prosecutors say Ortiz fired 10 rounds at the home in March while Rihanna, her children, her mother, and rapper A$AP Rocky were inside. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell said the league is cooperating with Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier, who issued a subpoena against the NFL as part of his investigation into the league. Uthmeier is investigating the NFL for potential civil rights violations related to the league's Rooney Rule. Uthmeier wants the league to get rid of the Rooney Rule, which the league implemented in 2003 to help promote diversity and hiring practices. If the league does not comply, Uthmeier said he will file a civil rights lawsuit against the league. Uthmeier said the Rooney Rule is blatant race and sex discrimination. Let me break this down for you. Those are code words for individuals and groups who think white people have been passed over for coaching in high-level positions by minorities, specifically African Americans. At the moment, Goodell said there are no plans to get rid of the Rooney Rule. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's celebrate.
Y'all did it!
Loving each other, needing each other.
Hey, Los Angeles, KBLA Talk 1580 is turning 5, and we're celebrating in a big way.
Oh my God!
Join us Friday, June 19th, Juneteenth, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Beehive for our 5th anniversary bash and Juneteenth celebration. We're talking surprise celebrity guests, a special presentation, and a major announcement you will not want to miss.
I can't wait to hear it.
Plus, live music, dancing, games, and enough food and drink to keep the party going.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Of course, you're welcome to bring your own picnic basket, blanket, and lawn chair. And the best part, it's completely free. But here's the thing. You've got to sign up in advance. Space is limited, so don't wait. Head to KBLA1580.com right now and lock in your spot. Friday, June 19th, the Beehive, KBLA Talk 1580. 5 years strong, and we're just getting started.
Happy anniversary, KBLA! Yeah, man! The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It is Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Guardian writes, Jim Crow 2.0, Republicans move to oust Jim Clyburn, South Carolina's only Black Democratic congressman. South Carolina has had exactly one Black Democratic representative in Congress since 1897, James Clyburn. A proposal to redraw the state's political map would dismantle the district he presently represents. The state's 6th congressional district starts on its southern border with Georgia in the suburbs of Savannah, moving 100 miles north to wind around the heart of Charleston before cutting through the Black Belt farmland to the state capital of Columbia, another 115 miles away. It contains Charleston's high-end shopping district, King Street, and the state's ornate antebellum Capitol building. It also contains the Gullah Geechee coastal homeland, two of the state's historically black colleges, and some of the poorest people in the United States in Barnville and Allendale counties. The district is a product of a 36-year-old peace pact between civil rights leaders and South Carolina's white conservative political apparatus. Now, I need you to pay very close attention to that, because it's very difficult to distinguish between white Southern Democrats and white Southern conservatives. The base of the Democratic Party in many of these Southern states, especially in South Carolina, are the fact that African Americans, since Brown versus the Board of Education, and since the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, have largely made white Democrats who tend to vote with white Republicans more accountable to the needs of our communities. Many of these Southern Democrats, particularly in state legislative races, in state senatorial seats, have been Democrats and have had Democrats in their families since the Declaration of Independence, since Thomas Jefferson founded the Democratic Party in 1793. They trace their ancestral roots to states' rights, to the Confederacy, to Dixie, and to Dixiecrats. In fact, you don't know in the South who a Republican is, who is a white male, until they tell you they are a Republican. And that's true of the Democrats as well, except that African Americans, where more than 40% of African Americans live, from Virginia around to Texas, we are the base of the Democratic Party in the South. The dismantling of congressional districts in the South isn't just an attack on black representation, and it most definitely is that. I believe more liberally than most conservatives who argue that we're only going to lose 19 seats as a result of the Louisiana versus Calais, down from 62 members of Congress who happen to be African American, losing 19 seats. I believe we're going to lose 30. We may not lose them between now and the midterms in 2026, but this process is not going to be over in 2028. The governor of Mississippi said, we're going to give Benny Thompson a reprieve, but by 2028, Benny Thompson and Mississippi will be gone. And the Supreme Court of the United States gave the state permission to do just that, doing Benny a one-term favor, essentially. But that's not the case in Tennessee. And that's not the case in other states in the Union. And while this disease of the attack on Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 appears to be narrowly focused on the South, expect in the not too distant future that the enforcement of the Calais decision in the North will come in the form of the Department of Justice suing northern states that complied with the Voting Rights Act and Section 2 as well. And where those states resist, the Department of Justice is likely to recommend a map to a federal judge or a federal panel of judges that they believe complies with the Louisiana versus Calais decision to undermine African American representation in the North. So we're talking about a process that could lead all the way up initially to the census in 2030. And of course, the big fight is the reapportionment plans in 2032, when districts are drawn over again all over the United States for the first time without having to comply with the Voting Rights Act of 1965. We could be looking at nearly zero members in Congress, and that's not an overstatement, because we saw the exact same process after Dred Scott, after the Tilden Hayes Compromise of 1876, 1877, and the Plessy versus Ferguson decision of 1896. It was a gradual period of compliance with the Supreme Court's mandate. In this particular case, the overturning of significant provisions of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, per the Louisiana versus Calais decision. And when you think about a voice as powerful as Jim Clyburn's is in the Congress of the United States, if Democrats are fortunate enough to regain control of the Congress in November, why wouldn't the state of South Carolina want the most powerful African American in Congress at the moment that Democrats are controlling Congress? Certainly, Jim Clyburn could deliver more in a democratically controlled Congress for the entire state of South Carolina than a freshman member of Congress from South Carolina. But this has nothing to do with Jim Clyburn's qualifications or the power or the influence that he will yield in the Democratic Party. This is simply a race-based decision that protects white representation in the Congress of the United States and denies African Americans an equal opportunity of getting elected. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. It is Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, Dr. S. Todd Urey will be our regular contributor and offer some insight on the current news and what's taking place in our country. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward right here on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
When the story gets twisted, who's going to tell the truth? When they cut the microphones, who's still talking? When history gets rewritten, who remembers what really happened? We do. KBLA Talk 1580. Black media isn't just important right now, it's essential. Because when mainstream outlets move on, we stay. When the headlines ignore our communities, we don't. When decisions are being made that affect Black lives in our schools, our neighborhoods, our economy, KBLA is in the room. This is more than radio. This is a lifeline, a record, a rallying cry. Black stories, Black voices, Black power.
The heat is on.
On the air and in the culture. KBLA Talk 1580. Stay connected. Stay informed. Stay loud.
Stand up!
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, host of The Voice of Reason, weeknights at 7 p.m. here on KBLA Talk 1580, with a personal invitation for you to join me and Insight.me as we present The Healing Box, live at Inglewood's world-famous Miracle Theater, Saturday evening, May 23rd at 7 p.m. Look, I understand. Your attachment style has been running your life like a rogue algorithm, and nobody has had the courage to press pause. Until now, Dr. Bakoya McCall and yours truly are curating a night where clinicians, spiritualists, and an all-star panel of Black woman healers like Dr. Shalonda Sunshine Crawford, Dr. Deshauna Johnson, and spiritualist Precious McGill will join some amazing spoken word artists and the legendary comedian Louis Dix to diagnose, disrupt, and heal your relational wreckage in real time. Listen, bring your trauma. As a matter of fact, bring your baby mama. No, bring your testimony. And if you're still texting your ex at 2 a.m., baby, you're not just invited, you're the target demo. Tickets are moving fast, so grab yours at themiracleinglewood.com before your dating history gets flagged as a pre-existing condition. That's themiracleinglewood.com. We'll see you there Saturday, May 23rd at 7 p.m.
I love days like these at the pool, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. I'm ready to make a splash with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, risankizumab Riza. Skyrizi is a prescription-only injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. At 4 months, most people saw 90% clearer skin when measured from head to toe, and many were even 100% plaque-free. People also saw significant improvement in psoriasis symptoms of pain, redness, itching, and burning.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
Now there's nothing on my skin thanks to Skyrizi, and that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis. Visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZI to learn more.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. I want to try my best to paint a perfect picture for you as best I possibly can, given the format and the way in which radio allows me to project this message. So we have to put on our imagination, our thinking caps for just a moment. And I want you to think about the idea of building a house. Building a house. What do you have to do? You have to have a pre-construction period where you draw up the plans for building the house, the architectural designs. Let's call that the pre-construction period of the United States, from 1619 to 1776. We are in pre-construction. The nation is tolerating slavery. Women have a position, if you will, in our society, but not a equal political position in our society. Native Americans are being trampled, exterminated, a genocide is taking place. And then in 1776, the construction of the United States begins, built upon a single principle. So we went from peak pre-construction, assembling the parts, settlers and immigrants assembling the parts. In 1776, we begin the construction of the United States. Construction. We have to put together a government. And this government, which will break away from the past, a government that was tyrannical and despotic, led by a king, would lay the foundation in the Declaration of Independence that all men, and with a friendly amendment from Elizabeth Cady Stanton, nearly a century later, all women are created equal. The pre-construction phase ends and becomes the construction phase. The construction phase from 1776 to about, I'd say 1861. That includes the writing of the Constitution on September 17th, 1787, the addition of the Bill of Rights in 1791, the process of expanding the country from east to west, which includes the compromises between free labor in the North and slave labor in the South, admitting one free state to the Union and one slave state to the Union as the country began to move further and further west. Let's call that the construction phase of the United States. They are building the house. And then a tornado comes through and blows the house down, or big bad wolf, huffs and puffs. And it begins the deconstruction phase of the United States, as certain states, upon the election of Abraham Lincoln to the presidency of the United States, who ran on a platform to stop the expansion of slavery into the western states, before he could even be sworn in as president after his presidential victory, the state of South Carolina fired a shot at Fort Sumter. And the process of dissolving the Union, tearing the house apart, had begun. After the deconstruction phase ends in 1865 and the addition of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, this period is known as First Reconstruction. We got to rebuild the house that has just been torn down by the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln and his successors began offering forgiveness and pardon and mercy, even to those, if you will, treasonous traitors who withdrew from the Union the first time, allowing them back into the Union, including compensation for their newly freed property, Negro slaves. Reconstruction of the United States comes to an end when the federal government agrees to withdraw its troops from the South in the Tilden-Hayes Compromise of 1876, 1877, and of course, the Plessy versus Ferguson decision, the separate and unequal doctrine of 1896, laying the foundation for what can only be described as first Jim Crow. From 1896 to Brown versus the Board of Education, that decision overturned the separate and unequal doctrine, and it began a process by which a new reconstruction of the nation would begin that made the country far more democratic than it had ever been on July 4th, 1776. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, Civil Rights legislation 1964, public accommodations legislation. The modern America that we all know is the byproduct of everything in Second Reconstruction. And in the last year and a half, and certainly the 4 years of Donald Trump in his first term, a process had begun to bring an end to Second Reconstruction. But what is most notable, as I introduce our guest, is that between the construction phases, First Reconstruction and Second Reconstruction, there is always a phase of racial resistance, civil rights resistance, and human rights resistance. And that's why this phase that we are entering into can only be described as Jim Crow 2.0. Now, how long Jim Crow 2.0 will last, I do not know. It could last a week. It could last a year. It could last 10 years. I've already laid the case that the redistricting process is easily going to go from now till 2032 and beyond. All of that emblematic of the idea that Jim Crow 2.0 is underway. Without political representation, without state representative representation, it is hard to imagine that Democrats and Republicans in state legislatures across the country are going to pay attention to our particular interests and needs in light of the history of discrimination in the United States. How long it will last, I do not know. That it is here, there is no doubt in my mind. And then after Jim Crow 2.0, there is always the possibility in the United States of a third Reconstruction. At age 61, it is something that we are not likely in my generation to live and see. But it is, from my perspective, if the Union is to survive, it is inevitable. Dr. Todd Eury is principal of the Eury Firm, a Maryland-based litigation and government relations firm, and also serves as the senior pastor of Douglas Memorial Community Church of Baltimore and affiliates. He's the former executive officer of the Rainbow Push Coalition, the organization founded by my father. Dr. Eury's social justice work includes having served as a board member of the National Action Network and past political action chair for the Maryland State Conference of the NAACP. Dr. Eury, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and the politics of our faith, and we're so grateful for your regular contribution.
Always glad to be with you. I was pulling out my notepad so I could keep taking notes. My apologies for showing up to class late to miss the beginning of the lecture, brother professor, as you always do, laying out the case before us to consider what's going on in real time.
Dr. Eury, as Second Reconstruction comes to an end, the legislature in South Carolina has now passed in the House a map that essentially eliminates the district of Jim Clyburn. I don't think it's by chance, by the way, that South Carolina was the first state to secede from the Union before Abraham Lincoln was sworn in as president. The history of resistance in South Carolina and some of the deep southern states like Alabama, Mississippi, Texas, Tennessee, and others have been at the forefront of racial resistance since the American Civil War, and obviously since the peculiar institution of slavery. Dr. Eury, your thoughts about where we are?
Well, we are still in, or we've gone back to the reality of the preamble to the Constitution. When the preamble is framed, the Declaration has been in effect for a few years. The ratification of the Constitution required that to become states, in quotes, those states that would take form, had to go form their state constitutions to come back to be able to participate. When we read those state constitutions, we know that there were different perspectives about owning human beings as property. And so there was a conflict from the very beginning that shows itself in the original iteration of the Constitution, in that slavery would be time limited, that it would only be permissible up until 1808. That being the frame, we have to recognize that baked into the recipe, even with the amendments and the modifications of the governing document, the supreme law of the land, is a foundational permissiveness for the denial of dignity and humanity of a certain group or class of people. This is manifesting again in the guise of political gamesmanship. One cannot help but see what is obvious to everybody except the majority who opined on the Calais decision, that I don't care how many ways you dress up the decoy to make it look like a duck and try to say that it's a decoy. Decoys, their quacking noises don't sound like ducks. This is a duck. And this duck is the duck of the discourse around the ratification of the first Constitution, the original document. And so there's been this tension ever since, trying to move the country beyond that very limited constraint that would be ultimately the most risky proposition to its early survival, because Lincoln's concern when writing the Emancipation Proclamation was that if the nation continued to be torn, it would leave the nation susceptible to being reclaimed by the very monarchical powers that it fought to separate from. And so there was kind of self-interest in this whole conversation. There's self-interest in this today. We got to be clear. You can't just go after districts with majority Black folks, or districts with Black representation, or districts that appear to be distinct in terms of how the district looks, in terms of its makeup, and come away with any other thing. I don't care if you call it partisanship, it's a duck.
Dr. Yeary, let me ask you this question. We have about a minute and 30 seconds before we come forward. Isn't the true purpose of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to desegregate the Congress of the United States, that it was an all-white male body before the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 laid the foundation for a new republic by allowing African Americans, Hispanics, and others to have equal representation?
I think that was part of it. I think the reality was, when the Voting Rights Act was codified, it was to capture some enforcement power in the law to make the full political participation of the descendants of formerly enslaved persons real and not just rhetorical. And so that has been the fight. And the reality was the recognition that if there was participation, there was going to be a shift in the politics of the nation that would force the Constitution to expand.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Dr. Yeary, Todd Yeary, principal of the Yeary Firm, is our very special guest. He's a civil rights attorney and public policy advocate. He holds a deep belief that honest dialogue creates opportunities to form strategic partnerships and strengthen families as well as communities. When we come forward, we have a number of current issues that matter to the Republic, that matter to the state of our union, and we are fortunate to have Dr. Yeary as our very special regular contributor on Wealthy Wednesdays. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who is Black, is hoping to become the first Black woman elected U.S. governor. She addressed supporters after winning Georgia's Democratic primary Tuesday night.
I'll be a governor who will always fight for you.
The Republican nominee will be decided in a June 16th runoff. California voters will see a Barack Obama on the governor's ballot this year, but it's not the 44th president. Democrat Barack D. Obama Shaw changed his name to honor the former president. He is one of 61 candidates running for governor, including candidates with unusual names and day jobs ranging from hotel housekeeper to nurse and musician. And leaders of Wilmington, Delaware's historic Mother African Union Church are vowing to rebuild after the landmark burned on Sunday. The church was founded in 1813 and has ties to the Underground Railroad and Civil Rights era. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell said the league is cooperating with Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier, who issued a subpoena against the NFL as part of his investigation into the league. Uthmeier is investigating the NFL for potential civil rights violations related to the league's Rooney Rule. Uthmeier wants the league to get rid of the Rooney Rule, which the league implemented in 2003 to help promote diversity and hiring practices. If the league does not comply, Uthmeier said he will file a civil rights lawsuit against the league. Uthmeier said the Rooney Rule is blatant race and sex discrimination. Let me break this down for you. Those are code words for individuals and groups who think white people have been passed over for coaching and high-level positions by minorities, specifically African Americans. At the moment, Goodell said there are no plans to get rid of the Rooney Rule. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We got a lot to talk about. I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Are you still pouring gallons and gallons of water into a thirsty lawn that never seems to get enough water? LADWP has a special offer for a free water-saving front yard refresh available to eligible LADWP residential customers. LADWP handles all the work, including lawn removal, installing an efficient irrigation system, and planting beautiful California-friendly plants. Save water and lower your bill with a free front yard refresh. See if you qualify at LADWP.com/LEAP. That's LADWP.com/LEAP.
Going to a World Cup match in LA this summer? Ditch the parking stress and ride Metro. With direct service from across LA County, it's the easy way to get there for just $1.75 each way.
The joint will be jumping. Ebony Repertory Theater, in association with Big Street Films, brings you one of the most beloved musicals of all time. Tony Award winner, Ain't Misbehavin'. The soulful, swinging celebration of the music of Fats Waller. From the rollicking to the romantic, this show is pure magic, full of the songs that defined an era and the voices that'll make you forget everything else for a night. Foot stomping, heart stirring, unforgettable. Don't miss Ain't Misbehavin' at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center, starring Lettucey, directed by Ren T. Brown. This is the night out you've been waiting for. Tickets are going fast, so don't wait. Grab yours now at ebonyrep.org or call the box office today at 323-964-9766. Ebony Repertory Theater, bringing the culture, keeping the legacy alive.
Ain't Misbehavin' runs May 21st through June 8th at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center. Get your tickets now.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Folly, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580, where on Wealthy Wednesdays we discuss the politics of our faith with Dr. S. Todd Yeary. Dr. Yeary, welcome forward to the show.
Man, always good to be with you. You make me work real hard because you start talking and I start thinking. It's a whole thing.
Man, I appreciate you. Hey, Dr. Yeary, let me ask you this question. Dr. Wilmer Leon and I had an interesting conversation in the first hour regarding the NAACP's call, now supported by members of the Congressional Black Caucus, as well as Jim Clyburn and others, and it's growing to encourage African-American youth who might be receiving scholarships to attend college in Southern state schools to consider not playing for those schools and consider institutions in other places. Dr. Leon and I share a skepticism that maybe we should have started with the professional sports teams, like the Dallas Cowboys or the Atlanta Falcons or the Jaguars. There are other teams in the South, including the Atlanta Braves, where many of our athletes have actually made it. They've got guaranteed contracts. But to ask a young person, age 17, oftentimes coming from rural communities or coming from impoverished homes and communities, to make this sacrifice, the argument I made was essentially when we were told that we should boycott the Olympics and that America would be boycotting the Olympics, to look at those young people and say that even though they've been training all of their lives for gold and silver and bronze medals, that they should bypass 4 years until the next Olympics to even consider participating because of the politics. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the NAACP's call for the boycotting of these Southern schools and the conflict, I think, that it creates, or the challenges that it creates for their futures when there are professional athletes who should be called to do this while allowing these young people to complete their careers. Dr. Yeary, your thoughts?
There's a lot there. If we peel back the onion just for context, let me give you a personal frame from my experience with your father. After Breonna Taylor was killed in her home, Reverend and some of us on staff, your brother Jonathan, went to Louisville with Reverend to meet with Breonna's mother, Tamika Palmer, and their counsel, and with the mayor and the governor, Andy Beshear, and members of the council, to one, listen to what their concerns were, because they were at the beginning of a struggle. I was going back and forth to Louisville over the next several months on behalf of Reverend and the organization. And on the day that the then Attorney General Daniel Cameron issued his decision that the state would not be leveling any charges against the officers, I was actually in a meeting with the mayor and the command staff in the command center, along with the chief of police, to monitor what the response would be by law enforcement, because we knew there were protests going on. Reverend made a statement very clear, and immediately he said that those students who look like Breonna Taylor, who would be inclined to go to the University of Louisville or the University of Kentucky to play collegiate sports should consider going elsewhere, should actually boycott going to these PWIs. Reverend sense was, we should not have to choose between permissive economic exploitation and the reality of economic and political oppression. They go together. And so when you continue to engage, because now it becomes transactional, you then leave yourself open to the fact that if you get to enough numbers, the argument's going to be, it's obviously not that bad. The Reverend would often say, and I'm sure you remember, that the only thing worse than slavery is adapting to it. And so resistance is not a convenience decision. It's a substantive decision that goes right to the core of what our individual and communal understandings are about justice. And when we find ourselves in these circumstances, sometimes we have to make these difficult decisions. The challenge is going to be, now that NIL money is on the table, many of the schools where we didn't have a choice in many instances but to attend because of the nurture that was necessary in those environments. You went to A&T, I went to Morehouse. I mean, it wasn't just that they were kind of HBCUs by label. There was an ethos in those spaces that helped to cultivate the creative uniqueness of what it meant to have genius and Blackness in the same recipe. And so we got to get back to what's substantive for us. It's going to be a tough ask for young students, young families who have that opportunity, but we can't let that be the decision, the discussion. We put it on the table that that's what it should be considered, along with other considerations, but it is not the determinative decision that ultimately sets out what our strategy must be in this moment.
I think that your approach is very rational. It makes a lot of sense to me. And I feel that if a student, based upon their own understanding of the politics, it's easy to say, I don't know nothing about no politics. I don't care about no lines. I'm here to play football. I just want to graduate from college. But I would hate to see a person's career defined by the fact that they didn't know nothing about no politics. They didn't know nothing about no lines. And therefore, I decided I was going to go to college and take care of my mama, who's been working 3 jobs. And I got an opportunity to finally get my mama out of that house. That stuff is real. And I heard Dr. Wilmer Leon when he said that. So you got this athlete. This is athlete hypothesis. I'm hypothesizing that there is an athlete that becomes that draws the ire of the community because, they didn't have necessarily the strength, the intellect, or the capacity of a Cassius Clay, later a Muhammad Ali, in terms of consciousness, to really fight the system. But these are their formative years. I mean, the last thing you want is the NFL to turn around and say, well, you made a statement as a 17 or 18-year-old, and now that it's time for the combine, we're going to make a statement. We're going to ignore you like we did Kaepernick. There seems to be, at the ownership level, teaching Negroes a lesson who step into that space. All I did was raise the question, why not the professional athletes? Why not start with them? Give these kids their chance. Again, my mind not completely made up on the subject, but I wish there had been a broader conversation with some reflection upon the dilemma that we put those young people and their families in, and how we mark the moment that they decide whatever they decide as a moment to criticize or to critique them for the rest of their lives.
Here would be a creative thought as you and I are looking at the image of a young Muhammad Ali. You mentioned Colin Kaepernick. He stood on principle, and it cost him economically. but it did not cost him in terms of consciousness and credibility. It's a tough decision. I have in my catalog of possessions one of the early paychecks of Jackie Robinson. Great athlete. This is after he desegregates baseball. The value of that check paled in comparison to his white counterparts. Here's what I would say we have to consider. We shouldn't have to leave our young folks out there, whether they be professional or quasi-professional, when we think about how the NCAA operates and how it makes money off of the talents of our young folks. What we have to think about is, do we go back and form our own league and take our dollars and our economic power and create the mechanisms where we can take care of our community?
Do I play football or basketball in a community where the Confederate flag might be waved or worn by people in the audience? It's a lot to think about and a lot to talk about. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It's the politics of our faith with Dr. S. Todd Yeary. More when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's be real. For too long, too many of our students have sat in overcrowded classrooms in underfunded public schools.
But as head of the San Diego School Board, Richard Barrera changed that.
Under Barrera's leadership, student literacy rose from the state average all the way to #1 among major urban school districts. Barrera led the way for smaller classrooms and for teachers to be paid what they're worth.
Barrera funded more counselors and mental health services, and community schools that teach real-world skills for future jobs.
A community organizer who became an education leader to fight for our kids. The only candidate for State Superintendent of Public Instruction.
Backed by the 310,000 classroom educators of the California Teachers Association. Vote Democrat Richard Barrera for State Superintendent.
Ad paid for by California Teachers Association Independent Expenditure Committee, not authorized by a candidate or committee controlled by a candidate.
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt? Angela was. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $80,000. Felicia was having health problems, got behind on her taxes, interest and penalties were adding up. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $15,000. Civic Tax Relief is a professional tax negotiation firm that can protect you from the IRS. If you're getting collection letters, call Civic Tax Relief for a free consultation. They will go to work helping you discover all the relief programs you may qualify for free. James owed the IRS $37,000. Civic Tax Relief represented him against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, he did not owe the IRS anything. If you are in trouble with the IRS, call Civic Tax Relief for your free consultation now. 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257. Get a free consultation and real tax relief. Call 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The midterm elections are upon us. It is voting season once again. Common Cause's motto is fighting for the democracy we deserve. In service of that goal, Common Cause puts its state and national policy expertise, massive network of grassroots supporters, and nonpartisan approach into action to strengthen our democracy against the challenges we face today. They work at every level of government on priorities that impact each of our lives, like defending the right to vote, limiting big money's influence on our elections, holding public officials accountable, and more. Common Cause is a nonpartisan grassroots organization dedicated to upholding the core values of American democracy. They seek to empower all people to make their voices heard in the political process. This election may be the most important one ever. If you'd like to make a donation or volunteer in service to the Constitution, please visit commoncause.org. That's commoncause.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Did you know about 1 in 3 people with plaque psoriasis may also develop psoriatic arthritis? which causes joint pain, stiffness, and swelling? Does this sound like you? Listen to what it sounds like to be a million miles away. Tremfya guselkumab, taken by injection, is a prescription medicine for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who may benefit from taking injections or pills or phototherapy, and for adults with active psoriatic arthritis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Imagine being a million miles away. Explore what's possible. Ask your doctor about Tremfya. Visit Tremfya.com or call 1-800-526-7736.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Let's celebrate.
Y'all did it!
Loving each other, needing each other.
Hey, Los Angeles, KBLA Talk 1580 is turning 5, and we're celebrating in a big way.
Oh my God!
Join us Friday, June 19th, Juneteenth, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Beehive for our 5th anniversary bash and Juneteenth celebration. We're talking surprise celebrity guests, a special presentation, and a major announcement you will not want to miss.
I can't wait to hear it.
Plus, live music, dancing, games, and enough food and drink to keep the party going.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Of course, you're welcome to bring your own picnic basket, blanket, and lawn chair. And the best part, it's completely free. But here's the thing. You've got to sign up in advance. Space is limited, so don't wait. Head to KBLA1580.com right now and lock in your spot. Friday, June 19th, the Beehive, KBLA Talk 1580. 5 years strong, and we're just getting started.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
Yeah, man.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Bobby Wally drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on this Wealthy Wednesdays and the politics of our faith with Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary. Todd Yeary is the principal of the Yeary Firm, a Maryland-based litigation and government relations firm, and also serves as the senior pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church of Baltimore, Maryland, and affiliates. He's one of the most sought-after advisors in the civil rights and human rights space. I'm honored that he spends his Wednesday afternoons with us right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Dr. Yeary, before we get to your word of hope, I do want to pose a theory and see what your take on it is. For years, we have been advocating for reparations for descendants of slavery in the United States, and knock on every congressional door, all 435 of them, just so we can have a study to tell us how much or what we've entitled to and where our land went and where our mules are being stored, and all that. But Donald Trump and his new slush fund at the Department of Justice and the Internal Revenue Service seems to show us as Democrats a direct path to reparations. That is, if the President of the United States, using the president's language, acknowledges that we are aggrieved, that we have been mistreated, that we have been incarcerated, that they can set up a fund without congressional approval, without having to go through Congress, and start writing everybody a check. Now, if that's good for the goose, as you said earlier, it has to be good for the gander. I would imagine, do you see in this moment an opportunity to hold Democrats accountable, that when we have a Democratic president, we want a slush fund set up at DOJ as well to make sure that our labors and work have been well compensated and that the bounty that is America will no longer continue to issue us promissory notes that keep coming back marked insufficient funds.
Well, we have to be clear on what the president did. It was outside the bounds of typical legislative appropriation. It was in settlement of litigation. Basically, he was a plaintiff against himself. He's the executive. He was suing a department or an agency of the executive branch of the U.S. government. And in negotiating the settlement, what he got out of it was the benefit of protection from disclosure, that there would be forever a prohibition for any entity to look at his taxes. Can't look at your taxes because there's now a ban. Now, why is that important? You know that the IRS has huge enforcement authority, and many times the issues that confront us in terms of the disparate application of law comes around the filing of taxes. And so if it were to be determined that his filings were somehow fraudulent, he now faces again the specter sometime after he would leave office that he might be prosecuted. Now that's gone. So what he gets out of it is he takes the cover that he needs and uses it and says the settlement value for this cover should be about $1.8 billion for those who feel like they've been aggrieved by the hostile and very aggressive posture of the prior administration. If we take the 1,600 or so folks that showed up at the Capitol on that unguided tour on January 6th, because they just wanted to walk around the Capitol without going through the visitor center and being cleared through security. If you gave each of them an equal proportion of $1.8 billion, it would come down to about $1.1 million per person. So now you take folks, many of them who had already been adjudged, convicted for crimes, which would make them under the 13th Amendment declared as slaves. They not only get their freedom, they get their 40 acres and a mule in terms of compensation for having had to endure the experience. So we got to understand deeply when we think about how reparations would be paid, we need plaintiffs to be able to, in the course of their settlement discussions against the government, should they get that far, to add not only declaratory relief, an actual statement that says the practice or the action was wrong, but injunctive relief that prohibits further delay by the government when it gets applied. We've got to get back in the room and think about strategy, because what he's showing us is that there are ways to leverage the system to get more than what should come out of an individual plaintiff's case against the government. It's frustrating, but it's also telling. So when we think about reparations, when we talk about restitution, we have to now rethink it with all that we're seeing and this notion that white folks are being, imposed upon because of the demands for justice from folks that have never been a threat to them. We got to recognize the Monopoly game for the rules as they are written, not as the way we wish the game was played.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest and regular contributor is none other than Dr. S. Todd Yeary, 1 foot in the courtroom and 1 foot in the church. Grateful, Dr. Yeary. Until next time, I'll see you guys on Thought-Provoking Thursdays. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.